Hello, this is a very quick presentation about linguistic diversity in numbers. This is the world, and if you think for a moment, where are the most languages spoken, then you might not think of the right places. Because if you scroll down and look at the map of the world that has these places that have a lot of languages spoken, then you may be surprised. Think about here, we are in Mexico. Look at all the hundreds here in North America and even more in South America. Then here is Africa, especially West Africa. This right here is Nigeria, the most populous country in Africa. And here you have very, very intense linguistic diversity, many languages spoken. Whereas here in Europe, really not that much in comparison to these areas. Then also here, Southeast Asia, and over here in the Pacific, intense linguistic diversity in places that you don't think of right away. So I want to show you some statistics. So if we look at, for instance, Africa, we just saw West Africa. We have over 2,000 living languages, which makes 30% of the world's languages. And here you have the number of speakers. That's 12% of the world population. Then look at the Americas. We have altogether almost 1,000. That's 14% of the living languages. And you have over 50 million people. However, is a much smaller percentage of the world population. And then you have here, let's go to Asia. You have even more languages than in Africa. So Africa, Asia, and the Pacific have the most living languages. And Asia, of course, is the most populous region of the world. It has China with the most populous country in the world, over a third of the population. So 3.6 billion, 60% of the world's population, a third of the living languages are in Asia. And then Europe is actually fairly small in terms of linguistic diversity, 234. That's only 3.4% of the living languages. However, you have 1.5 billion people, 26% of the world's population. And then the interesting thing here, the Pacific, a very small percentage of the world's population, just almost 6.5 million, but you have 18% of the world's living languages, which is amazing. So look at the map once more. Here you have the Pacific, here you have Asia and Africa, and then here you have Central America, Mexico. Lots of linguistic diversity. And I have some other statistics here. You have a pie chart. This is very interesting, an interesting way of looking at it. So you have 60% of the world's population speaking Asian languages. You have 26% over a third of the world's population speaks European languages. 12% speak African languages. And here this tiny sliver is the Americas. Yeah, so the Asian languages are spoken by 60% of the world's population. European languages, however, are spoken by over a third of the world's population. This is another interesting statistic. So if you look at only the languages that have 1 million speakers each, more than 1 million speakers each, then you have only 389 languages. Yeah? So only 389 of the world's over 7,000 languages have more than 1 million speakers. But these 389 most important languages are spoken by 94% of the world's population. And the rest of the world's languages, namely 6,000 of them, are spoken by 6% of the world's population. So remember this, the Pacific area, for instance. Thousands of languages, but a small percentage of the world's population. But 94% of the world's population only speak these 389 most important languages that have more than 1 million speakers. And then, so this is if we looked at languages in terms of speakers. This is a completely different way of looking at it. So if you say the most important languages are, if you said languages with the most speakers are most important, then it would be Chinese by far. And then English, and then Spanish, and then Hindi, Arabic, Bengali, and so forth. But that's not how we look at it. And this is what the book by David Crystal is about. And David Crystal uses this graphic by the linguist Bry Kachru that he called the circles of English. And it's this population and speaker statistic relationship between what he called the inner circle, which are the countries or regions of the world where everyone grows up speaking English as their native language. That's the inner circle, like the US, the United Kingdom, New Zealand, Australia, etc. And then the outer circle, those are communities, and he has India and Nigeria as examples, where English plays an important role in the society as a second language, right? So this is a language that plays an important role in this society. Take India, for instance. If you go to a university in India, English is likely the language of education. And so the people speaking English in these countries like India, Nigeria, the population is expanding, or the number of speakers is expanding exponentially in comparison to the inner circle. And then even more so, if you look at this, what he called the expanding circle, these are the societies where English plays a role as a foreign language, right? So let's take China, Russia, Brazil, or let's, for instance, where I grew up, Germany, would be in the expanding circles where people learn English as a foreign language, and the people who speak English as a foreign language are even more people than those who would be in the so-called outer circle, where the language plays an important role, is maybe an official language, such as in India and Nigeria. Even more people learn English in school as a foreign language, and so the number of speakers in the expanding circle outnumber the number of speakers in the inner circle. And of course, together they far outnumber the speakers of the inner circle. This is one of the important concepts that David Crystal discusses in his book, English as a Global Language, which I hope you will enjoy reading. So have fun, and I hope you enjoy the material.